What's good, everyone? It's your boy Salos back in another Monster Hunter World Iceborne video. Let me tell you something, okay? I'm actually going a little out of order because if we're going chronologically of what happened, because this playthrough's already all out of whack. So the way that I progressed through this game is up until Stitches and Ogre, everything has been pretty chronological. But there is a monster I had to skip who's in the thumbnail. No, I'm being suspicious about. You guys can read. But couldn't beat Raging Brachydios, so I skipped him, went to Furious Rajang, took on Safi Jiva, and then we came back and beat Raging Brachydios. So that's also why the playthrough's kind of halted, because I have the first attempt of Raging Brachydios, but I didn't even last through round one. It was just an instant KO. And I cannot remember the... No, actually I can. There are very few moments that I've just been hard stuck on a monster. Yes, we have had a couple... You guys have seen the entire world playthrough. If not, there's an entire playlist. I'll link it above. But in world... I want to say maybe Black Diablos gave me a little bit of trouble back in high rank. Then there was... I don't even want to say Tigrex, because I triple card to Tigrex, but I didn't get stuck on Tigrex. Barryoth I had experience from Rise, so I didn't really struggle with Barryoth all too much either. So yeah, I don't want to say... I mean, there have been potholes in the road, yeah, sure. But I've never been outright stuck in world so far. Raging Brachydios is the first monster I have been truly stuck on. And I've withheld my comments on it. I've been very loose on talking about Raging Brachydios, because when it comes to these discussion videos, I always give myself one rule and one rule only. I'm not allowed to talk about it, or I'm not allowed to make a video on it until I've mastered the fight. I mean, you guys can see the gameplay for yourself. You can say if I've quote-unquote matched the fight or not. I mean, I still can't beat him cartless, but I at least have a general idea of what he likes to do and his weaknesses and how to exploit him. And only then am I allowed to talk about him. At this point, I do have the full Raging Brachydios armor, because we'll get to that. I can list every time I've gotten stuck in a Monster Hunter game. The very first time was back in 4 Ultimate with the first Repel Gormagala quest. That's where I got stuck, rage quit, and then just didn't come back to the series until Rise. In Rise, I then got stuck on the optional quest, A Quartet of Horns, where you had to hunt 2 Diablos. Then I got stuck on the Zenogre story progression quest, where you couldn't beat him. And I want to say Apex Rathalos, if you want to count that, but he's an optional fight, so yes, no, maybe so. My point is, there are not too many times in this series where I have literally been at a point where I'm like, I cannot beat this monster. I have done everything I'm supposed to do. I had max equipment. You guys see, I've been keeping up with the progression of the game. I've been keeping up with the grinds. I've been keeping up with the guiding lands. I did everything I was supposed to do up until that game. And with my max equipment, max gear and everything, this was literally just a get good moment. There has never been a moment in my... I want to say veteran, because I'm still relatively new with Monster Hunter. I've only been playing this game for like, what, 2 years now? So I don't want to say a veteran, but as an experienced hunter, there hasn't been a time where I've just been like, this isn't an armor issue. This isn't a progression issue. This is a skill issue. So Raging Brachydios has been a get good moment, and I think that that's kind of a defining moment. I don't know when you guys, or if you guys have had that moment in your master rank where it's not your gear, it's not your lack of weapon knowledge, it's not because you don't know how to use the weapon or play the game or understand mechanics. It's literally because the monster is literally better than you, and you just have to sit there and figure out the fight. And I think that that's a lost art when it comes to Rise, I want to say. I promise all this will make sense, but just bear with me for a little bit, because all the hunters that I'm hunting with, my friend DP and my other friend Abug, we all started with Rise. I mean, my friend DP, he started with Forestman like me, but he was kind of carried by other hunters in his hunter group back then, where they played in high school. And a bug, this is his first Monster Hunter game ever. So for all intents and purposes, Rise was our quote unquote first game where we just had to kind of grow on our own. And because the wire bug was just so overtuned in more ways than one, it really didn't force you to have that intimate relationship with the monster. And I don't mean that in a sexual sense, but it didn't allow you to really have to quote unquote, master the fight. And that's just art. I mean, you can understand the fight, you can understand attack patterns. That's just video games in general. That's not a Monster Hunter exclusive thing. Just okay, the boss is gonna do this, this, and that. I used to make the joke about my friend of Bug when we used to fight in Smash Bros. That say you kind of fight like a video game boss. He's like, "What do you mean I fight like a video game boss?" Well, you have very telegraphed attacks. You stick to your attack patterns. You leave yourself open at this point, and that's my chance to counterattack. So I either have to stop you in the middle of your combo to topple you, or to get you flustered so I can wail on you and get you off the stage and edge guard you, or I gotta wait for your combo to end and then so I can send my own. That's just kind of just something that video games do in general. So that's not a Monster Hunter thing, but what is a Monster Hunter thing is learning how to master a fight. Sticking with the Smash Bros stuff for a little bit longer, I never understood why people wanted the monsters in Monster Hunter. I mean, I get it that the hunter is node of node. It's just an OC essentially. Like, you can't really make an OC of Smash Bros fighter, so your next best option were the monsters themselves. But honestly, the monsters in this game really do feel like their own characters. I think that's why people get so attached to them, because it's just like a character moveset where Smash Bros, let's stick with the Smash Bros metaphor, with Mega Man, there is no other character like Mega Man in Smash Bros. He has a very mid-range playstyle. He doesn't like to camp you out, because if you get too far, his projectiles don't go far enough where he can quote-unquote camp you out, but they're close enough that he has to still be in danger. It's kind of like the bow in Monster Hunter, actually, now that I think about it, where you're still close enough to get pummeled, but you're just far away enough to keep a safe distance between you and your opponent. And Raging Brachydios really did feel like that. It felt like I was fighting another character in a video game, not a boss, not a final boss, not a video game boss or anything, just another character, almost like in a Smash Bros sense. Because he just he has attack patterns. Yes, they're very exploitable. He has the jump attack where he ground pounds and then he's left open for a little bit. If you roll in, you can get behind him and get a couple free damages. He has where he runs at you with explosions everywhere. You just roll out the way and you can get a couple slashes in with dual blades. He has attack patterns, sure. But just like how a character in a video game has a pre-selected skill list or has a command list of combos you can do, it is up to you, the player, to do mix-ups, to do dash dancing, to incorporate all these intricate strategies to make it so that you're just not so predictable, and that just because you have a moveset that everyone knows that you have, it's up to you, the player, to mix it up and keep your opponent guessing. And that's what I feel like Monsters in Monster Hunter do. My friend DP actually said it perfectly yesterday. I wish I recorded this little thing that he said. But he literally said, "I can see the monster thinking." What other video game can you say that sentence in? I'll give you the perfect example where he said that. It was in the third area of the volcano in the Guiding Lands, where it's not exactly, let's put a picture up here, because that visual will be very helpful right here. But it's not where he does his final stand, and it's not exactly the entrance. It's like that area right in the middle where you turn that corner before you go to his final stand area. That area right there, he likes to specifically lure you to that spot, because then he'll slowly put slime there. Either he'll punch the ground and leave slime there, or as you're just hitting him, slime fall off his body. And he will then detonate it, because then he'll do his bomb rush attack where he charges in and explosions go everywhere. Or he'll just do his roar where he ignites all the slime in the area, and it is very hard to dodge. If you're fighting him in that little enclosed space, you will get blasted. And he will use that time when he's blasted knocked down to charge in and cart you. He has done that to me several times, and I've fallen for that trick several times. It's just things like that, how it's the same exact moveset. The same exact move as he's been fighting for three rounds now. By the time he gets to the volcano, you know a general idea of what his moveset is capable of. So he knows that he's getting to his limit, so he starts mixing it up a little bit. That's just, oh my goodness, that is just another level of monster design and video game boss design. That is just, what other series can you say that about? And can I take a minute to actually talk about the fact he's a boxer? Like, very clearly, Brachydios is aspired to be after a boxer. I've actually been watching a lot of boxing lately. Don't at me. Don't question me. But yeah, Raging Brachydios really does mimic how boxers actually move. Because I've been watching like boxing matches per se, but I've been watching a lot of knockouts, and a lot of ways that people get knocked out in the quote unquote first round is either someone overextends, the opponent is playing on the defense, and then the other, well, it's called player one, player two. Player one usually overextends, and player two is just waiting to react to the person. And if you ever fought, it's actually, I keep going back to Smash Brothers, but it's just like Little Mac, where Little Mac knows that he is not a very offensive character that can make a lot of mistakes because he can get thrown off the stage, get hit once off stage, he's dead. So a good Little Mac will wait for you to make the first move, and he will react to what you just did. And that's what makes Little Mac so scary, is that he is the perfect punish character. If you get reckless, if you get sloppy, you'll die at 30. And that's actually how boxing works. Well, at least the boxing matches I've seen. Like I said, I watch a lot of KO, a lot of like little just knockout compilations, and people usually get knocked out because player one overextends, player two waits to see what player one does, the player one leaves himself open, they get a fatal shot. Well, I don't want to say fatal because they don't die, well, not always, but they get like a blow to the head or a blow to the chin or something, and it just forced them to just drop straight to the floor and get knocked out, and they win the first round of the first 15 seconds. That's typically how it goes in boxing, and the same can be said about Brachydios. If you overextend, if you don't play reserved, then you will get KO'd. And this is a two-way street, by the way. It's not that you're just trying to wait to hit. It's not like, okay, Brachydios does this move, now attack. He does the same exact thing. There are certain times where he'll mix up in his attack patterns where he'll just reposition himself. He'll look like he's about to swing, but then he'll just jump behind you. He won't swing, but he'll just jump behind you and roar. Or he might do like a fake out swing where he's covered in blast. So if you do try to punish him, that you're just getting hit by the blast by, then he can extend his combos even more. Or he'll just stand there menacingly and do something else. It's really just this intimate dance between you and Brachydios. And even if you're being too reckless, he has that mechanic where if you hit his paws, which are his weak spots, by the way, they're coated in slime. So if you hit him too hard, then the slime will fall off and it'll instantly detonate, and then it'll explode on you. These are all things that make Brachydios such a memorable monster for me, because it's not you're fighting a video game. It's like you have to think alongside with him, and you have to be patient, but you can't be too patient because you're still, at the end of the day, you're on a 15-minute timer. So you still have to press on and keep the fight progressing in a positive direction. You have to take risks. You have to take your shots, especially using Safe Jiva armor like me. You definitely have to take risks. But it's really just something I have not experienced in Monster Hunter so far, and it was very annoying. Not gonna lie. At first, it was very annoying because I could not beat this monster. I want to say it took me, well, officially, it took me nine tries to beat Raging Brachydios. That's the total count that you'll see in the videos. It took me 9 attempts to beat him. But to get to the point where I can say I quote unquote mastered the fight, that took me a lot longer because we beat the one urgent quest by sheer determination alone, but we can never do it again. We always went into the quest, we always got bodied. You know why? Because we hadn't really adapted to how Raging Brachydios fights. And I love how I'm talking all this crap as I'm just getting bodied on screen, and Divine Protection just keeps proccing and saving me from carding. I honestly think that's one of the main reasons why the fight's so manageable, because Divine Blessing Secret is kind of stupid, not gonna lie. But all that is besides the point. My point is that Raging Brachydios has forced me to rethink how I not just see World, but how I see Monster Hunter as a series. And if I'm going to slay Fatalis, I think that I have to have this mindset going forward. And I am very grateful to Raging Brachydios for forcing me to warp my mindset around how to tackle this series, because I keep hearing that Fatalis is not one of the hardest monsters in the Monster Hunter series. I have consistently heard that Monster Hunter is one of the hardest video game bosses like people have just ever faced in gaming. So if I'm going to overcome this wall, I'm going to have to bring everything to the table. So I am very much grateful to Raging Brachydios for being that monster for me to help me realize how I have to think going forward. And I'm not gonna hold you, I was actually a little scared to make this video because I know how much people love Raging Brachydios. I know he's a fan favorite. I know that he's one of the peak experiences of Monster Hunter and how everyone has such fond memories. But for about 85% of my time fighting this monster, I was absolutely miserable. I hated his fight. I hated the fact that when I hit him, I got exploded for it. I hated the fact he never stayed in the spot for more than 1 second. I hate the fact that he hit like a freaking freight train. That even after I went to the Guiding Lands, after I grind up all my gear, after I put all max augments, how I made my gear as maxed out as possible with armor spheres, how after all of that, he still did 70% damage to me with one punch. I did not like this fight at all. And I thought I had nothing positive to say about it. And because I didn't want to make the video. Because I didn't want to get slandered on the internet for dissing on a monster that everyone loves. But hey, good synergy, right? But as I went on, that my perspective on the monster changed, which is why I'm very glad I have that perspective, that I don't make any opinions until I master the fight. Well, again, master the fight as I get carded. But you guys know, I think that one card isn't like that, saying that, oh, you have to do a perfect run to say that you've mastered the fight. No. But you guys know how it is. But ultimately, I don't want to say I had fun, but Raging Brachydios has taught me a very valuable lesson for Monster Hunter. And as I've just said for the last couple of minutes, I'm just very thankful that I learned that monster, because does the Lord know we are going to need every lesson applied for Elatrion and Fatalis. I haven't really talked about the final phase all too much because I don't really have anything to say about it. I feel like in the final phase is cool, but one, that's the only thing that I knew about him going into it. I didn't hear the theme, so the theme was actually pretty cool. You'll hear me react to that in the actual video whenever I do get around to actually editing it. But I feel like the final phase is more like a reward for the fight itself. I feel like the hardest phase is actually in the third phase, where you're in the volcano, where he's bouncing around. He's trying to trap you to that one area that I told you about, where he can bombard you with blasts. You're dodging volcano eruptions, the heat in general. If you get stunned or if you get put on a lava trap, then you just get all these small little damages over time that just add up to letting Breaking Brachydios just come in and get one good hit for a fatal KO. But the final phase, if you have a fireproof mantle on and you drink your cool drinks, I feel like that's just a cinematic, that's just your reward for surviving that long. That's just this really cool 1v1 versus you versus the monster, where you can't trap it, you can't do anything, you can't farcaster out, you just gotta keep fighting until you die. Or he dies, one or the other. It's really cool, but I feel like that only works if you don't know it's coming, because when you know it's coming, it's not really a surprise, so you kind of expected this from the beginning. And I don't want to say it lessened the moment for me, because it was still cool to experience. You guys have seen my reaction to all that. But because I knew it was coming, it was just like, okay, this was cool to experience, but there's not much else here. So yeah, and I get that there's nothing else like that in Monster Hunter. There hasn't been anything else like that in Monster Hunter ever. But yeah, just the lack of surprise makes it, I don't want to say underwhelming, but just another part of the fight that is significantly less difficult because I feel like that it was just made to be a very cinematic and a very cool moment, a very memorable moment. It just obviously worked because a lot of people didn't see that coming. I mean, I know there was a trailer for Raging Brachydios, and it showed a little bit of that final phase, but it didn't really go into the depths or the details of how it was going to work out. So, don't have too much to say about the final phase. It was cool to experience. I love it. And I also his mount theme. I don't know how many of you guys have heard the mount theme for the final phase, but it's actually pretty incredible. It's like up there with Zenogre's regular theme versus Zenogre's mount theme. It's actually really cool. I'm not sure if you guys listen to that in the background, but yeah. I love that mount theme a lot. Now, here's the part that I have been loosely alluding to this entire time. The armor. My God, the armor. Wholly of offense, wholly of aggression, wholly of do you like big numbers, wholly do you like the best weapons in the game that's not Safi Fatalis. Because, my God. I do not know why this armor set is as good as it is. Because to my understanding, Raging Brachydios isn't an Elder Dragon. He's just a monster variant. I do not know why his gear is this cracked on the same tier of Elatrion and Fatalis armor. But the only armors I really see are, like I said, Safi Jiva, Fatalis, and sometimes Raging Brachydios gear, because just 2 pieces gives you Agitator Secret. And I didn't really understand why Agitator was so good in this game, and I forgot who said it, but someone said that it's basically like the offensive version of Defiance to Skill and Rise, where with the monsters in Rage, you get a bolster to your defenses, where you get earplugs, you get blight resistances, and all that stuff. It's a very nice Skill and Rise. I never leave home without it. And Agitator is the offensive counterparts of that. But the difference between Rise and World is you can control Agitator. All you have to do is flinch out the monster, turn the monster 3 times, boom. Agitator is instantly activated. So you can pretty much always have Agitator online at every time, which is why Agitator is probably one of the best skills in this game. And I want to say in this entire playthrough of all the charms I've gotten, I think I've only gotten 2 Agitator charms, which I thought that attack boost was going to be the hard one to get, but I guess Agitator is just as rare. But I see why. But this armor, even aside from just a 2-piece, because at level 4 you get Artillery Secret, which is pretty good for Charge Blade specifically, but even at just, if you wanted to wear the full armor just because, it's not a bad armor to just rock as just an armor. You guys know how I feel about mix sets. You guys know I love my mix sets. But I would seriously consider wearing the full Raging Brachydios armor. I mean, aesthetically, it's not really up my alley, not gonna lie. It kind of looked like a Mighty Morphin Ranger in space or something. I don't know. Never. It was same with Almudron's armor and Rise. People like the Almudron armor, but I was like, I'm not really too much a fan of it. But what is this armor? If you guys are seeing the stats for yourself. If you go the alpha set and you just want to sacrifice slots, it ain't even that bad of a trade-off. Because look at all the skills you get. With the alpha, you get Agitator maxed out, Artillery maxed out, Blast Attack basically maxed out. Just put a level 1 blast attack jewel in there and you're good. Weakness Exploit maxed out, Speed Sharpening maxed out, and Guard 2, which is the perfect amount of guard you need for Charge Blade, because actually the perfect amount is the Guard 3, because when you charge your shield, you get 2 points of guard. So I guess to get Guard 5, you need Guard 3. But even though Guard 4, basically, for Charge Blade, if you're playing optimally, like, the alpha set, who needs the slots? Like, really? It's actually mind-boggling how good that armor is. Both the secret skills maxed out, and you actually get useful, not just useless random crap. You don't get things like random Marathon Runner or random Master Gatherer or Barbecue. No, like, all of these skills are just perfect for their design. And then when you go down to the beta armor, sure you only have Adshare secret. I mean, you only have Adshare level 7 and weakness exploit, but you have 8. Count it with me, 8 different slots to play with. Level 4 slots at that. And then you have like the rest of the level 3s and level 2s, level 1s to play around with to kind of fill out whatever you're still missing. But the beta is just so customizable. And you start with Adshare maxed out and weakness exploit maxed out. One of the most important offensive skills in the game, mind you. So even when you don't have skills to work with, if you did the grinds and you did the Zenogre quest and all that, you got good, decent enough charms, pop off. Because this armor is, oh my god. And can we just talk about the weapons themselves? Like, with Stitches and Ogre, it was up for debate that maybe they might be better than some of the Dragon Safi weapons. But here, I don't even think it's up for debate. These weapons are just insane. These feel like Defender weapons on crack. That's what these can I say that on YouTube? Whatever. These are Defender weapons on crack. I stand by that statement. Because I have not felt blast weapons be this good since the Defender weapons back in high rank. It's like, they're like, remember that feeling you had back when you used blast weapons, you felt like you were cheating for having these super strong weapons? Yeah, now you got a master rank. Have fun. These weapons are just, oh my, like, even when we're doing Safi raids, all I saw were light break this, light break that, light break this, light break that. And me and my friends were like, what are these light break weapons? Like, oh, that's the that's the Raging Brachydios weapons. And it's just, oh my god, it's like even if you hate everything about Raging Brachydios, you cannot say from an objective standpoint that he's not a monster you should farm. Because these armor pieces, these weapons are just amazing. As for my other hunter friends, I don't think they really share this opinion as me, because one of them, DP, he still hasn't really mastered the fight and he still is getting pretty pummeled by it. But he is getting better at it. We were able to do quite a few successful runs, so I don't want to say that he doesn't know what he's doing in the fight. But he still doesn't really enjoy it, which is fine. Everyone has different opinions. And my other friend, a bug, he's currently traveling the world, so he hasn't had a chance to really fight Raging Brachydios yet, so I don't really know his opinion on it. But for this little hunter right here, this little hunter went from this probably is going to be probably one of my least favorite monsters I have to talk about, and I dreaded making the video because I knew people were going to just hate bomb in the comments, to being one that, while I don't love the fight, I still have a mad respect for the monster, and I will always have, like, this is a defining moment in my hunter career. And it may not be the reason why everyone else thinks that I remember Raging Brachydios, that people remember for the cinematics and for the schematics and everything of it, but I will remember this monster because he was the first monster to challenge me in my master rank and with all of my knowledge of the Monsters Hunter series, to really put everything I've learned about this series to the test and apply what I've learned. And for that, I cannot give this fight anything less than a 4. It's not a perfect fight for me. I know on most people's radars it will be a perfect fight, but honestly, I don't really have a good reason for giving it a 4. It is very subjective, but this is all just my opinion, so I'm allowed to be a little biased. It's my video. If you want to make your own video, go ahead, be my guest. But just the initial frustrations will still always be a part of the process. So that is the only reason why I don't give it a perfect score. And honestly, that's just me in general with anything. It is very rare I give anything a perfect score, because I don't think that anything is perfect. But if I were to give anything a perfect score, this might have been one of them. I just don't think that, while there is a little bit of control to where the blast explosions are, you can control to an extent where they're going to land detonate, at the end of the day, it is still a bit of randomness, and it still is a little frustrating. And even when you have, quote-unquote, mastered the fight, you can't always know where every blast explosion is going to be. And while you're trying to keep track of him and keep track of the blast explosion on this floor, and sometimes in the third phase they just kind of blend in with the lava patches on the ground, it can be a little frustrating at times. But that is literally the only criticism I have with the fight. So with that, I give it a 4. Remember what I just said about how I'm very critical about getting perfect scores to things? Well, I'm giving the weapons and armors a perfect 5. I do not see any flaws in this armor. These are just, as soon as you get to Raging Brachydios, craft these armors. Craft this. It doesn't matter what weapon you're using. Every weapon in the game benefits from Agitator's Secret. And it only takes 2 parts. You can still use you can do what my friend DP is doing. You just have 3 parts of Safi, 2 Raging Brachydios, and then see how you see fit. Or just use the beta set because it gives you, again, Weakness, Exploit, and Agitator, which, sure, you don't really need Artillery Circuit. That's very specialized for Charge Blade and all the other weapons that benefit from explosions. But still, Agitator, Weakness, Exploit, 2 very universal skills that every weapon would benefit from. So I do not see any reason for giving this anything less than a 5. It's just, as soon as you unlock it, make this armor, make these weapons. You will not regret it. I know I kind of double dipped right there by talking about the armors and weapons in the same thing, but I have the same thing to say about both of them. And honestly, I haven't really had enough to really form a solid enough conclusion on them. But again, I just value that flexibility. There aren't that many. There are not that many armors in the game where their secret skill only allows 2 pieces of the armor. So anything that only allows you to have 2 pieces, I honestly think is very valuable. So that's also another reason why I just crack it up even more. Overall, I give the entire experience a 4 out of 5. I give it a 4 out of 5 because, like I said, even after you've learned everything about it, it really just comes to how I feel like what really is going to make or break for most people is how much you can manage. You can manage the blast and slime mechanic of the fight, but that's just a part of Brachydios as a monster. So, at sometimes it can get a little obnoxious, especially when the slime falls off his body. There's like a literal half a second window before it falls off his body and then it detonates. There are just little things like that where I don't really think that it's more of like a nitpick more than anything else, but it is still a factor into my enjoyment of the fight, which is why I cannot give it a perfect score, because I cannot honestly say that this is the perfect monster in a fight as everyone has made it out to be. Honestly, I think that's also another thing too. I think that this fight has just been so gassed up over time that by the time when I finally encounter it, that I have these super high expectations. So it's one of those things that the more time passes, the more I hype myself up to look forward to it. Then when you actually get to it, it has impossible shoes to fill. So maybe I'm being a little bit hard on the fight from that perspective alone, just because the community has just gassed up this fight to no end. But at the end of the day, he might not be memorable for the same reason as other people, but he is a memorable monster that I will never forget. I will never forget this fight. I will never forget this experience, and most importantly, I will never forget the lessons I learned from this monster. So thank you, Raging Brachydios. You have made me a better hunter at the end of the day, because I'm going to need everything if I'm going to slay Fatalis. It's been your boy, Salos. Thank you so much for listening. Thank you for making it to the end, and I will catch you guys in the next one. Till then, deuces.